Hello friends. Welcome. Today we will recap 2022 comedy thriller film, Amsterdam. Spoilers alert. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. The movie starts in New York City, 1933. Burt Berendsen works as an unlicensed surgeon and physician who fixes up wounds suffered by vets from World War I. He wears a glass eye as a result of his own injury while serving in France. He also has back braces that will save his life in the end of the movie. After work, Burt meets his best friend and fellow veteran, Harold Woodsman, at a morgue. Harold tells him that this is going to be very important for both of them. Then, a woman named Elizabeth Meekins joins them, whose father, Bill, was the men's former commander. Liz wants Burt to perform the autopsy. Liz also believes her father was murdered. His body is brought to them and they start singing. But, they are suddenly interrupted when they hear a woman's voice that they only have 2 hours to do whatever they want to do. Liz tells them to perform the autopsy and then meet at a restaurant. Then, they are joined by another veteran, Milton King. The men meet with medical examiner Irma St. Clair, to whom Burt is attracted. Harold and Milton are asked to leave as they don't have proper authorization to be there. Liz and Burt perform the autopsy on Bill, while discussing their personal lives. They discover a strange fluid in his organs, leading them to think that Bill was poisoned. Burt and Harold go to a restaurant to meet Liz as she had asked them, but they spot her trying to sneak out. The two follow and catch up to her to try and tell her about the poison in her father's body. Liz appears nervous and tries to tell them that she thinks Bill saw something terrible he shouldn't have seen, at which point an assassin, Tareem Milfax, pushes Liz in front of a car that runs her over. Milfax yells to the crowd that Burt and Harold pushed her. They try to tell their side but the crowd doesn't listen to them. Tareem pulls his gun and at the same time police arrives and fires on Burt and Harold, prompting them to make a run for it. They spot Tareem talking to his men and telling them to find Burt and Harold, so they run and hop on a bus to get away. Burt then takes the story back to 1918. When his wife Beatrice van den Heuvel and her affluent family force him to enlist in the war, making him think that it will be good for his image. Burt goes to France, where he meets Harold and Milton, along with Bill, who the men viewed as a good commander. Harold and Bill start to trust Burt as a doctor, when he tells them that his in-laws sent him there to get rid of him. In the next scene, Burt loses an eye as Harold sustains wounds. The two come across Valerie, a nurse who looks after them and has a strange habit of saving the shrapnel. She seems to like Harold just as much. Burt and Harold support her when there is a little riot in the medical facility. Valerie then invites Harold for drink and he happily follows her. She smokes pipe while looking erotically at Harold. Burt sneaks in and they play nonsense song game. They all become friends. Valerie explains to the men how she uses army shrapnel into her artwork. The group decides to travel to Amsterdam. Valerie introduces Burt and Harold to Paul Canterbury and Henry Norcross, two men who work together to produce and market glass eyeballs and who are respectively MI6 and U.S. Naval Intelligence agents. Valerie tells them that they help each other. The three then settle into a run-down apartment and spend their time partying and having a good time. Harold and Valerie fall in love and Burt is their best friend. They work together to aid other veterans. Later, Burt decides he wants to return to New York to be with Beatrice, though Harold and Valerie object. When Burt gets home, Beatrice's father bans him from the medical profession for working while injured and tells him to avoid Beatrice. Burt starts practicing illegally in an alley and starts self-medicating for the agony from his wounds. Eventually, he gets arrested. Meanwhile, back in Amsterdam, Harold and Valerie have to split up since Harold wants to continue helping vets, while Valerie doesn't want to. And they also know their interracial relationship would be frowned upon back in the States. Eventually, Harold moved back to New York, and got his law degree. After Burt's release from jail, they worked together for 10 years. The movie then moves to the present. Burt and Harold go to Beatrice's house and hide in there. She and Burt talk about their failed relationship until Harold sees Rose and says that he heard Liz mention a Mr. Rose before she was killed. Beatrice corrects him and says she must have said Voze, as the Voze family are wealthy and influential, and may have had a connection to the Meekins family. They hear a knock on the door and visited by detectives Hiltz and Getwiller, who are investigating Liz's murder and suspect Burt and Harold after they were pointed out. Burt denies the allegation by saying that Harold was hired as an attorney by Liz, and he performed autopsy on Bill, who was their general in the army. Burt convinces the detectives to get off their backs by suggesting they can speak to the Voze family for a lead into what happened to Bill. On their way out of the house, they see Milfax drive by them with his accomplice and threaten them by mentioning the Committee of the Five. Tom Voze agrees to meet with Burt and Harold. They get to know his emotionally unstable wife Libby, and when Valerie sees the men again for the first time in 15 years, they discover that Valerie is Tom's sister. Libby tries to stop Burt and Harold from talking with Valerie, telling them that Valerie has a genetic nerve condition. But Valerie takes them to private and reveals the truth about her past to them. Harold tells her that after all these years he still doesn't understand who she is, to which she replies all the three are same and whatever the both are working on, she is part of it. Suddenly, Carlton arrives and knocks down Burt. In return Harold hits Carlton. When Tom eventually arrives and meets the men, he finds out that they are friends with Valerie. He advises them to speak to General Gil Dillenbeck to vouch for them because he knew Bill well and knows who might have been traveling with him, who might have been involved in his murder. Later, Valerie and Harold show their affection towards each other, while Tom and Burt discuss who might have killed Bill Meekins. Valerie and Tom convince Burt to let her join them, and he agrees. Getwiller and Hiltz stop by while Burt waits to speak with Dillenbeck. The former needs care for a combat wound of his own. Irma meets Burt and tells him that she was assaulted and had her arm broken by thugs who stole Bill's autopsy results from her. They kiss when Burt puts her arm back in its proper position. Beatrice arrives to discuss the current situation with Burt, and offers her father's help in getting Burt his medical license back. The detectives are then informed by Irma of the details included in the autopsy reports. Irma directs Burt to an office, where he meets with Valerie, Harold, and Milton. The group travels to a hotel to meet with Paul and Henry. Valerie and Harold show them and Burt that they saw Milfax, and followed him to a shady clinic where people were being forcibly sterilized. They learned about the Committee of the Five after they engaged in a physical altercation with Milfax and another man. Paul claims that there is a connection between this clinic and a conspiracy with intentions to rule the world, a cabal that funds similar facilities in Germany. In order to assist bring down this organization, Henry then instructs the group to secure Dillenbeck's appearance as a guest speaker at an upcoming gala. Next, the group visits Dillenbeck at home to have a conversation. Valerie has her vertigo attack, and they are not allowed to meet him, but then they are called to meet him. Dillenbeck reveals that he spoke with Bill just before his passing, and that during that conversation, Bill disclosed to Dillenbeck what he had seen as being appalling. Dillenbeck also claims that the Committee of the Five has been paying him money in an effort to win him around to their cause. In an effort to screen out the bad ones, Burt asks Dillenbeck to speak at the gala. McGuire, the donor, enters and asks Dillenbeck to support their cause because they want to depose Franklin D. Roosevelt and take control. Then Dillenbeck agrees to speak at the gala. The group meets Tom and Libby, the latter of whom is not so secretly smitten with Dillenbeck. Tom assists in clearing Burt and Harold's names in the eyes of the law. And now the police is with Burt and his friends. Dillenbeck meets many members of the Committee of the Five the evening of the gala, who offer him a speech they want him to read. Beatrice and her family arrive in the hopes of meeting Dillenbeck, but Burt chooses to permanently cut relations with them. To which Valerie and Harold hug him say, "You still have us." Burt moderate the gala, and Dillenbeck uses his own speech as he stands to speak, rather than what McGuire provided to him. Valerie and Harold spotted Milfax, who is attempting to kill Dillenbeck, and engaged in fight. Milfax misses couple of shots but one bullet hits Burt, but it was later revealed that his back brace stopped the bullet. Milfax is stopped, and they knock him off a ledge and onto the stage, where he is then taken into custody. As it is revealed that Tom is one of the Committee of the Five's leaders and that they are obsessed with fascist leaders like Mussolini and Hitler and that their ultimate goal is to turn the United States into a fascist country. The group meets with the detectives in a private room along with Tom and Libby. Bill was killed because he rebelled against them. It is also revealed that Tom had been tampering with Valerie's medication to make her develop the nerve disease. Tom and Libby are removed from the scene by the police, despite Valerie's fantasies about shooting them in the face. According to Burt, Tom and the other members of the committee were briefly detained, and they were not punished for their activities, which included continuing to disparage Dillenbeck. After testifying against them before Congress, the general goes home to live in peace. To continue their love unobserved, Harold and Valerie leave the country. Burt then tries to get close to Irma. The subject of his closing remarks is love, the sort Valerie and Harold share, as well as the affection he feels for them as his friends. The end.